everybody, Pen here with Yogacises, but I have Bia Bliss today. She is working with sexual healing, empowering people. Interestingly, she works with more men than with women, and I'll let her explain how that works because the previous people that have been interviewing, they have been working with more women than with men. Um, that's interesting. Welcome. Thank you for being
Thank
on.
you.
All right. So tell us what got you started in this journey.
Okay, whew, that's a long story, but I'll try to keep it short. I have always been interested in sexuality, and as you probably know, there are not many people out there that you can go and talk to openly about sex. And back in the day, we didn't have the internet, so I kind of had to do research on my own. And so I've always learned by doing. And eventually, I ended up working as an escort. So I was a sex worker for a while, and I learned a lot while I was working in the field. And I was studying psychology because I wanted to be a sex therapist. So sexuality is something that has always attracted me. I've always been fascinated by it, especially because it's a taboo for a lot of people. And I'm like, but everyone is doing sex. Like, how come we don't talk about it? Or how come is this all there is? So I guess it's just part of my calling to go on this quest of sexuality. And so in the last few years, I changed careers. So I no longer work as an escort, and I train as a sexological body worker. So I work with embodiment. So it's not talk therapy. I dropped out of my psychology degree. And the reason why I work with men is because, well, I have a lot of experience with men, and they need it as much as women do, but in different ways, because men don't really have the emotional support that women do. And so they're dealing with a lot of their issues on their own. So I work a lot with men who have premature ejaculation and erectile difficulties. And that's something that in our society, there's a lot of shame around that. And so men don't really, they cannot talk to their friends about, oh yeah, I couldn't get it up last night, or, I come in 2 minutes. And it's something that, they're suffering alone. And women have a lot of support. And women, on the other hand, they need, they feel disempowered in the bedroom, or there's a lot of shame and guilt, or especially for those that have grown up in a religious background, that have grown up in a religious home. And so it's kind of, different issues. But women also need to be empowered and learn to say no, and to take over their sexuality in the bedroom as well, because it's something that, historically speaking, women were taught to please. And so there's a lot of, oh yeah, I don't really want to do this, but I'm going to please my man. And so I work mainly with men because also they don't know any better. They're just following what they were taught or what they observed around them in society. So there's a lot of sex education that needs to happen on both sides. And but that's actually shifting for me. I'm actually more interested in working with women these days. So I'm in a transition stage in my business where, I have so much experience working with men, but also the women that I come across with, we do such beautiful work that I'm more inspired these days to work more with women. And still work with both, of course, but my focus is changing more to work with women because I don't have as much experience as I do with men.
Interesting. And this transition, what will help is when working with women, because you work with a lot of men, you can basically help them explain, okay, that's how men think, or that's what men want, and then they can help them to bridge the gap, right?
That's correct. Yeah, especially because the most important thing I've noticed is that there's a lack of communication. So nobody knows how to ask for what they want. Everyone is afraid to be rejected or to be, made fun of, or, people don't want to ask for what their real desires are, because there's this, for a lot of them, they're not even willing to own to themselves what their desires are. So one very basic example is that a lot of people, they're having sex so they can have cuddles afterwards. A lot of the times men and women do not want to be intimate or have intercourse, but they do so they can have a little bit of cuddles afterwards, instead of saying, hey, I don't really feel like, having sex tonight, but how about some cuddles? Because it's just that piece of, okay, when we start kissing, there's foreplay, and then there's intercourse, then cuddles is like, that's the script, that's what you follow, versus, just saying, oh, I really don't want to have intercourse today, but how about let's, today it's all about you, and then tomorrow is all about me, or something like that, working, like negotiating where they're at, or being honest about where they're at. Another very common one is the threesome. A lot of people are interested in having threesomes, but most people are not willing to ask their partner because they don't know how to have the conversation, or because they feel like they're going to be judged, or that they don't love their partners, or so there's this, and I know from my own experience, where I had my last long-term relationship with my ex-partner, and we bought a super king size bed. And it was a big bed that could fit like 4 people. And we'll be lying in there. And you'll be like, wow, this bed can fit 4 people. And you'll be like, yeah, it totally could. And so I never asked for a threesome, because I just didn't know how he was going to take it. And he never mentioned anything. And eventually our relationship came to an end, and we're friends. And one day I was talking to him because I had nothing to lose. And I said to him, you know what? I've always wanted to have a threesome in our big bed. And he said, really? Oh my God, like, how come you never said anything? I would totally be up for that. And I'm like, how come you didn't say anything? He says, well, because I wasn't sure how you were going to take it. So both of us ended up missing out, because neither could ask for what we needed or what we wanted, because there was that fear of judgment. And I've heard that story again and again and again with my clients, and even my friends. It's just something that, why are we not having these difficult conversations? Why, these conversational skills are not being taught anywhere? Because there's just so much that you can have in a relationship just by talking and asking for what you want, or expressing what you don't want. People will be a lot happier and a lot more fulfilled if there was more dialogue going on.
I'm thinking, if in my situation, a different context, not related to this, but like sometimes when I speak to my husband, or like I'm afraid to say something because I'm thinking, okay, he might not want to hear it, or he might take it negatively. But then once you say it, it might turn out the total opposite. Mm-hmm. So communication is important.
Absolutely. I can give you a little tip on communication if you like. And that's for you and for all your viewers. So it's called the bubble talk. So it's just, imagine like when you're talking to this person. So say I'm going to use you as an example. So you're going to talk to your husband about something that you're afraid to ask or communicate. So you say, honey, I'd like to talk to you about something, but this means there's no distractions, there's no TV. I need 5 minutes of your undivided attention. So then when you have the person's time, so it's like you're creating this bubble space. So a bubble is a contained space. And then the conversation has the following format. So it's fear, desires, and boundaries. Actually, no, it's the other way around. Sorry. Fear, boundaries, and desires. Yeah. So when you create the bubble, you say, honey, I want to have this conversation with you about XYZ. And I'm afraid that if I do, that there's going to be judgment, or you're going to misunderstand what I'm saying, or that you may react, or whatever your fear is. And then you set boundaries. So my boundary is for you to just listen and not say anything until I'm done. And then afterwards we can, talk about it or discuss it, depending on how it goes. And then you express what your desire is. So for example, and like in the case of a threesome, you would say, I would like to ask you, there's just something that I really want to do, but I'm afraid that if I share this with you, you're going to judge me, or you're going to think I don't love you as much, or that I don't know, I just feel like you're not going to receive it in a good way. But my boundary is that you just hear me out, and then we talk afterwards when I finish. Is that okay with you? Okay, yeah. So my desire is, we've been together for a long time, and I really, have this desire to bring a man or a woman to our bed just for, one night thing, just or as a play thing. I don't know, because everyone is different. What do you think about that? And then you give the person time to process, so because you're setting that boundary, okay, just hear me out. And then you can take turns on talking instead of just like, hey, how about we have a threesome? It's kind of like, whoa, where did that come from? That's a little bit more unexpected. And so what happens is when you start a conversation with vulnerability, people they're willing to hear you out and to be more considerate on your desires, because you're actually taking the time to communicate instead of just like casually dropping in, by the way, like I met this hot person, what do you think about bringing them to bed? You'd be like, what, where is this coming from? So do you follow the concept of the bubble talk?
Yeah, I love it. It's because then that way they don't feel pressured. And another way is this approach, adding in addition to like basically you can just listen, and you don't have to take it personally if you don't like it, and we don't even have to do this, but just hear me out, and then express how you feel about it. If you want to do it, then we can try. If not, then that's totally fine, right?
Absolutely, you got it. And this is what I find that is missing on communication in general. So this is, because I work with sexuality, that's why I'm using these examples. But you can use this with anybody. You could use it with your family. You could use it with your coworkers. You could use it with friends. It's really about creating a safe space to express how you're feeling and what you would like to get from that person, or what, if you're out, you want them to do you a favor, or even like if you were, I talked to a client about this. It was someone that had been sexually harassed at work, and they were afraid to go to HR because of fear of retaliation from their boss, because it was the boss that made the unwelcome comment, and I say, well, we just use the bubble talk, and it was quite successful. So just by saying, dear boss, here's my fear. I feel that if I take you to HR, this is what's going to happen. And can you, just please don't do that again. You made me feel really uncomfortable. And I really appreciate, the opportunity I have in the company. I love my job, but I just don't feel comfortable with what had happened between us. And I don't want that to be on the way of work. And so then they sort it out in a really beautiful way. And so there has been no retaliation, there's been no more harassment, and they just kept the relationship very professional. Because a lot of the times, especially in work situations, people are afraid to lose their jobs. So they end up not honoring their own boundaries because, they're afraid that a lot of the times there is retaliation because there's no communication.
There's two ways to it. One, the positive side is if you do tell, then you won't feel like you're stuck. And sometimes when you're feeling stuck, you can act differently because you don't want to say the wrong thing and you're more conscious. But then once you say it, you let it out, then you're like, ooh, then you can act differently. That's what, and then it might, there are two sides to it, right? You could either
absolutely
be totally fine and things work out and you can communicate even better with that person, or the person says, you know what, I don't want you to hear anymore, but then that's maybe it's meant to be that you move on to somewhere else where it's safer.
Absolutely, yes. And that's the thing about boundaries, for example, is that people that are not willing to honor your boundaries, they're people that shouldn't be in your life. Because setting boundaries is something that it's really important. That's you saying, okay, this is where my line ends and yours start. And when you're crossing the line, which happens a lot, especially if you think about children, children say, no, I don't want to give Uncle Bob a hug. And parents go hug your Uncle Bob, or go give your auntie a kiss, or, do this. And then the children go, no, I don't want to. And so from a young age, we learn that, well, setting boundaries is pointless because parents cross them all the time, or they tell us that it's not okay to do what we want to do. or not to do, especially when it comes to like, physical contact. So then we just learn that what's the point of saying no, or what's the point of saying anything, because I'm going to get punished by it. So then people learn that it's, I'll just put up with it. And that's not okay. So another part of my work is to teach people about boundaries and consent. So when people say no to another, we tend to take it personally. It's like, oh, you're rejecting me. How dare you not do this for me? But it's not about you, it's about them. So when you're saying yes to others, when you don't want to, you're saying no to yourself. And the same way, when you say no to somebody, when you really don't want to do that thing, you're honoring yourself. And so people need to learn that it's not personal. It's not that I don't want to do this for you, but I need to look after me first. Because if I am trying to please everybody all the time, I'm going to be depleted. And if you look around, we live in a sick society where everybody is on medication for the most part, because people are trying to conform to all these social expectations when that's not their truth. That's not what they really want to do. They're just doing it just to, because they're afraid, or they don't know how to say no. Say, for example, your boss asks you to stay at work, to come to work on your day off, or to cancel, like to shorten your holiday or something like that. A lot of people do that. They don't want to do it, but they're afraid that if they say no, it's going to look bad in the record or something like that. And that's not the case. I learned from a very young age when I started working that as soon as I set boundaries, and I was very unconscious back then, but I've been shut all over by my first boss, and I'm like, I'll never let this happen again. And I didn't. And one time I was asked to work overtime because it was a graveyard shift. And I said, no, I am not working graveyard shift. That's not what my contract says. I need to work for either morning shift or afternoon shift, but I am not doing graveyard. Oh, but everybody does it. I'm like, yeah, but I'm not everybody. And that's not what I signed up for when I got this job. And you know what happened? Everybody in the team had to work overtime of the graveyard shift, and I didn't. I worked the other shifts, and people are like, how come you don't work the graveyard? And I said, because it's not part of my contract. Oh, but neither is mine. I'm like, well, then you got to say something. Oh, no, I can't do that. Well, and that's how you end up getting things your way, because you're setting boundaries and you're honoring yourself. And then people around you will see that. They're like, oh, hang on, I cannot walk all over this person because they're setting boundaries.
And it takes time in the learning process, the learning curve, and especially at the beginning when you haven't done it before and the first time you do it, it can be scary.
Absolutely. And a lot of people feel so guilty because also there is this fear of, oh, but if I do that, people are not going to like me. And if people don't like me, I'm going to end up all alone. Oh my God, and the world is such a lonely place. And I hear this all the time. And so it's really a process to work with people and get them to realize that, no, they're never going to be all alone. Especially if you're a nice person, if you're a good person and you have a good heart, you're never going to be all alone. The only people that end up alone are those people that really are unpleasant to be around, and that, that commit crimes, or they're not good people. And the difference when you see them, like some people, they're homeless, but they're still good people and they have a good heart and they get support in other ways, so, but then there are people who have a lot of money that are really alone because they're not nice people. Like they're very, like they step over people, and they just don't transmit a good vibe. So who these people are. And in the end, you're never going to be alone if you're a good person.
And also the community, right? Like talk to people maybe on like social media, or we're close friends who can actually relate to this, who have experienced it before. And that way they won't feel alone when they're dealing with the situation.
Absolutely. And one thing I hear a lot is that people say, oh, it's better the devil you know than the devil you don't know. People are so afraid of change that they are willing to stay in their shitty situation because they're afraid of what's out there. And I was one of those people once upon a time, but somehow it was kind of like, okay, this is not working for me. If this is all that life is, then I'm not really interested. This is boring. And so I went on this quest, and spiritual quest, and I just done all this healing work, and I learned so much. And even my work as well has taught me a bunch. And I'm so grateful that I have stepped into the unknown and come to the other side. And it's like, wow. And in the past, I was hanging on to shitty relationships and shitty friendships. And because I thought, oh, okay, where am I going to make new friends? Or where am I going to meet another man like this? Yeah, it's not great. And nowadays, I'm so glad that I did that, because now only the people that really get me are in my life. Other people just drift away. They're like, oh, you changed so much, or we just don't really get along. And it's okay, because now by letting go of the old, it brings, creates space for the new. And I'm so glad that that's the case, because now there's no attachment to people or places or things. It's just like, okay, it's meant to be amazing. And everything is, my life has opened up so much. And this is what I bring with my work. I desire for people to experience the same, to experience sexual empowerment, sexual freedom, so they can really express themselves in a healthy way in the bedroom as well as out in the world. Because when you think about it, when there's sexual contraction, so think about like a really amazing sexual interaction you've had, the next day you're like, oh, it was so nice. But also, say if you had a really unpleasant experience, or if you feel like you've been walked all over, not just sexually but just in life in general, the next day you're like, like really grumpy or really closed off, because that's it's not expansive. And so when you learn to open up your sexuality, the whole life opens up, because we like the sexual center is our power center. And I wasn't going to bring this in, but I'm going to. And that's part of the reason why I feel that religions suppress sexuality so much, because it really takes the power of the people away. And if you look around, the people that are really empowered sexually are the ones that do not fit in the box, are the ones that are not working the 9 to 5 and following the American dream, or the script that we're given when we were children. They're the people, they're the change makers. They're the ones that are making a difference in the world, because they're not afraid to express themselves anymore, because they're fully sexually liberated.
And also that's the second chakra and the fifth chakra, the heart chakra and the second chakra. So that
Correct.
everything's connected. They all work together. If this area is balanced, then it will affect other areas as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the second chakra is very powerful. That's really your creative center. That's your sexuality. And that's where it comes from. But most people are blocked there. But and in the spiritual communities, everyone is so love and light, and it's so heart and up. But a lot of them are not doing the work from heart below, because there's a lot of darkness in the sexuality work as well, not just from self, but also from the collective. If you look back in history, sexuality has been repressed for so long that now it's starting to become more, more dining room table topic kind of thing, instead of we talk about what. Yeah. And so there's a lot of work to be done. And I feel, I teach a lot of workshops, and I feel it's really important for me to do this work and reach people, not just the one-on-one sessions, but also online, as well as running the workshops and retreats, because it's really needed. Everybody wants to experience life more fully. Like a lot of people live in the they're in the rat race, they're in the hamster wheel, and they're tired of it, but they don't know what to do or where to go or how to change that.
I'm glad that you mentioned the healing and you transitioning from that stage to on the side. So what are some of the steps, the process of doing that work, the transitioning work?
Okay, so the transitioning work is it doesn't happen like that. It's not an overnight process. It's It's been over 3 years full time for me, but it's been 7 years since I really started this journey. But the thing is, most people are disconnected from their bodies. So you really need to come home to the body. Most people treat the body as a mode of transport for their head, but literally you just have to breathe. Most people are shallow breathers. So just taking a deep breath like this, it really makes everything pause. So you're really just noticing the air going from your nostrils to your throat to your lungs, and then exhale everything. It's just that little moment of peace. And when you do that again and again and again, so when you do this for a few minutes, it's like, wow, there's so much happening. Wow, I'm feeling my body. Ooh, I feel some pain. I feel some tightness, or I feel tingly. So for me, I feel it really starts with embodiment. It's really learning to connect with your body. So coming back to sexuality, most people, when they are engaging with themselves, either self-pleasuring, masturbating, or having sex, they're so focused on the goal. They have an agenda. They want to release. They want to ejaculate. They want to orgasm, that they're missing out on the whole experience because they're very disconnected from their bodies. So when you do basic breathing exercises, just deep inhale, long exhale, deep inhale, long exhale, and you do that for at least 5 minutes, you start feeling your body. And the thing is, for a lot of people, feeling is uncomfortable, because when you're breathing like that for longer than 20, 30 minutes, what that does, it opens your emotional body. And for most people, they don't know how to deal with their emotions or their emotional body. They're just like, oh, I feel like crying. I feel really weird. I don't know what's going on. Oh, let me go distract myself. And so part of the process is to honor your emotions. So if you feel emotional, if you feel like crying, just cry. If you feel like, sometimes people laugh, sometimes people get giggly, or even anger comes up sometimes, just honor that. Just allow the emotions to run, because emotions means nothing more, nothing less than energy in motion. So if you think of a river, when you try to block the river, what does it do? It tries to go around the blockage, right? Because it's fluid, it's constantly moving. So what we do with our emotions, oh no, it's not acceptable. Society says, you can't deal with your emotions, it's not appropriate, especially if you're a male. That's even worse. And so what that does, it blocks the body. You get stuck. And over time, it's like building a dam. Eventually, it's going to overflow because it's not going anywhere. And that's when people have this, the emotional meltdowns, or this explosion of rage, or, they go on a rampage shooting people and things like that, because it's an overflow of emotions. Like the body doesn't know what to do with it. So it would be much easier if we learn how to clean up the house ourselves, instead of waiting until the shit hits the fan and creates, some damage, not just for yourself, but also to others. And so just really basic breathing practices, just taking 5 minutes to breathe in and breathe out. So kind of like, it's a form of meditation. But one of the exercises that I really like is called a body scan. And it's just deep breathing and focusing on different parts of the body. So I guess I can do this. I'm going to guide you in a very short body scan so you can have an idea what I'm talking about. So close your eyes and taking a deep breath in through your nose, and then exhale everything through your mouth. And you do that again. So deep inhale and the long exhale, and you keep doing that. So the inhale is always through the nose, and the exhale always through the mouth. And now you bring your awareness to your feet. So with your eyes closed, as you're breathing in, just notice your feet and just observe if there are any sensations on your feet. Maybe they feel firm on the ground, or maybe they feel floaty. And then you breathe into your lower legs and just observing if there are any sensations there. And you breathe into your thighs and your hamstrings. And you're just observing what sensations are present. So if you're sitting, you probably can feel your sit bones. You can feel your butt cheeks on the ground or on the chair. You probably can feel something on your legs. If you're cross-legged, you may feel the weight of one leg on top of the other. So just breathing and noticing. So this is a noticing exercise. So it's really bringing awareness into the body. So you breathe in, you notice your back. Breathing, noticing your shoulders. Just maybe you want to move your shoulders a little bit and just notice if they're tight or relaxed. Most people feel a lot of tension on their shoulders. Breathing into your arms, elbows, forearms, hands. Just taking a moment to notice that. And then the next breath in, expand your belly. So really push your belly out. And exhale everything. Again, breathing into your belly. And exhale everything. Notice your lungs expanding on the inhale. And let go on the exhale. And breathing into your chest, so really puffing up your chest as you breathe in. And moving up to your throat, deep breath, and a little sigh on the exhale with the sound, so you can notice the vibration in your throat, like ah. And now breathing into your face, so just noticing your cheekbones, your eyes, your forehead. And if you're outside, just noticing maybe the breeze or sunshine on the skin. And now coming back. So that was a very, very quick version of a body scan. So how was that for you?
That was great. Yeah, I love it, because then I can really be connecting with me and just being me.
Absolutely. And that's the first step. So it's really to feel the body and connect with the body, different body parts. A lot of times people say, I don't feel anything, I'm numb. Just know that numbness is also a feeling. So if you can't feel anything, you're feeling something. And over time, that will change. Over time, there will be more sensations. This is a practice, like learning a new skill or playing a sport. It's something that you need to do it again and again and again. So the next level is, once you get more comfortable with the breathing, the inhale and the exhale, and connecting with the body, is to add touch. So just using the fingertips and really with the eyes closed, just breathing and slowly exploring the face and just noticing the sensations. So you have to keep the breath quite deep while you're doing this. So like, and another thing is, in our society, sounds is not something that people give themselves permission to do it, because from a young age we get told, you got to be quiet, or shut up, or you're too loud, or if you have children, I'm sure you have said that to your child at one point or another, and children take that in literally. And so what that does, it really it keeps them contracted. And when you make sound, so think about a time where you really stress and you go, oh, for that second you feel good, because you're allowing the sound to come out and you're creating more space. So sound is actually your friend. So when you're doing the deep breathing and you add a sound like a sigh on the exhale, what that's doing is creating more space in the body. It's really opening up the body for more. So instead of more tension and more contraction, is more expansion and more pleasure. So it's really, it's a practice. Again, people don't give themselves permission. So know that you have permission. Sounds are okay. Sound is your friend. And even if it feels awkward, just do it in your car when you're driving and no one is with you, or go to the bathroom and just look at yourself in the mirror and go, ah. And it may feel a bit strange at first, but the more you do it, the more comfortable you will become, and you notice the difference, because it really opens up so much space in the body. And in turn, say when you are connecting with someone or even with yourself in a sexual way, you're going to feel so much more. It's not just going to be genital focused, but it's going to be a whole embodiment experience. The whole body is it's an erogenous zone, and the whole body has the capacity to be orgasmic. But unfortunately, people think that in order for them to feel that orgasmic feeling, they need to touch their genitals and bring themselves to orgasm. And when you do this practice for a long time, like I have so many orgasms, but not just the genital one. It's just that euphoric feeling that you get when you have a release. And I'm able to experience that with just by being outside and breathing and noticing the sunshine in my skin, or when I'm eating, or when I'm caressing myself, not genitals, but I mean just touching my legs or my arms, or I really make the time to connect with myself, because I would like to connect with others with the full cup. And the reality is, in our society, most people are relating with an empty cup. So it's like, I have an empty cup and you have an empty cup. And then there's this expectation. Hey, buddy, fill up my cup. But how can somebody else fill up your cup when they're empty as well? So by doing the practice, the breathing and the touch and getting to know my body better, what has happened for me is that I feel so complete on my own, with my own touch and my own practices, that when I go and engage with another person, it's out of desire. It's because I really want to be with them and not out of need. And looking back at my history, I would jump from relationship to relationship because I didn't know how to be on my own. I didn't know what I liked. I didn't know what brought me pleasure. I didn't even know it was possible to enjoy my own touch, because no one ever taught me that. And so by doing these practices for the last few years, so much has opened up for me that nowadays I don't feel I need to be in a relationship. I choose to engage with people when I feel like it, when it feels good, but because I want to, and not because, oh my God, like, what am I going to do if I don't find my other half? And the truth is, there's no other half. We're all whole beings. We just don't know that. So the practice, what it does, it brings you back home to yourself. So you can really be full on your own. And then when you choose to connect with another person, there's no lack.
That's really important to bring up, because a lot of people haven't experienced that before. It's because they're not in touch with their bodies, and they never really allow themselves to do that.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what it is. And so that's why working with men is important for me, because men have a different sex drive than women do for the most part. And men have the expectation that women need to fulfill them, like they, especially if they are in a relationship, in a long-term relationship. What I hear a lot is the mismatched libido. So men are always ready to go, and the women, especially if they've been married for a while, if they have kids, hormones change, priorities change. So the women are not as inclined to have sex as the men are. And so I say to them, I say, yes, but how do you masturbate? They go, yes, I do. Like, do you self-pleasure? They go, isn't that the same thing? I'm like, well, not really, because what you're doing is you're go focused. You just want to get off. You just want to get off. You don't want to connect with yourself. And so once they learn this practice, they go, wow, now I understand that I can fulfill my own needs. And then when I make love with my wife or with my partner, then it's a very different experience, because now I am not going to them out of lack. It's out of desire. And the partners notice the difference as well. And so they're a lot more inclined to engage, because it's not that neediness, or that nagging, we haven't made love in so many months or weeks, or you don't love me anymore. It's like, hang on, buddy. I'm your partner. I'm not your mother. I don't have to give anything to you. You need to learn to self-source. And this goes for women as well. I know a lot of women who jump from relationship to relationship, or they don't even know what they like. Like, they just allow the man to do whatever they want with them, because they have no idea how to get themselves off. So if you don't know what you like, or you don't know what you want, then it's very difficult for somebody else to please you, because you don't know. And then they go, there just goes another asshole. I'm just going to find myself a new man. And then the cycle repeats itself, because the problem is not the partner, the problem is themselves, because they don't know their bodies, they don't know what they like. And it's a process, because remember, nobody teaches you these things. You just learn as you go. Like, I don't know about you, but I went to high school in the States, and we did have a sex ed class, and it was about, this is your reproductive system, this is what the STDs are, and if you sign this paper and you're pledging abstinence until you graduate, you get a ring. And I was like, really? Too late for that. For me anyways. But no one ever taught me about pleasure. No one ever told me how to get myself off. No one ever told me how to have intercourse or how to give pleasure. And I know people that have never taken any sex ed class, not even this is your reproductive system or STDs or don't get pregnant speech. It's like, how do you know? Like, you just don't know. There's no information out there. So that's why I'm very passionate about this self-pleasuring practices of really coming back to the body and not focusing on the genitals, but really focusing on the body as a whole, because the body is an extremely sensitive and orgasmic machine. We just don't know how to access it. And it's so simple. It's just breathing and making the time.
That's so true. And especially, like, you can hear about it, but if you don't experience it for you and then try it with others, then you won't be able to know. And then you might just blame others.
Absolutely.
Without knowing that it's actually you.
That's right. Yeah, because also there's this culture where we don't take responsibility. We blame people. We like to point fingers because I am perfect. I do nothing wrong. And it's your fault and you're not pleasing me and you are not doing this for me. And what about me? Well, exactly. What about you? You need to look after yourself first. So then when you show up in life, not just sexually, but in life in general, you are coming in as a whole person and not as a fragment, expecting others to do things for you because you don't know how to do it yourself.
Exactly. Very, very informative. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Tell us how people can reach you and more about your programs and workshops and stuff.
Okay, so I am based in New Zealand on the other side of the world. I grew up in the States, but I'm actually here now, but going to New Zealand next month. So you can find me online on Facebook, Bia Bliss, BIABLISS, and my website is www.biabliss.com. And I am in the process of creating online programs. So this self-pleasuring practice, I just quickly guide you through. And it's something that I'm working on. I do have some videos on YouTube, so I could probably send you the link and so you add it to this podcast. And not very big on Instagram. I'm not very good at social media stuff, so learning how to get around. But just send me a message on Facebook, Facebook Messenger, and I'll be happy to connect with you and give you more information. I also, my workshops are mainly in Australia and New Zealand at this point in time, but I did go to Burning Man and I did facilitate a few workshops when I was there just last week. And there will be more. There will be online courses and there will be webinars and things like that. So just sign up for my mailing list on my website if you like, and send me a message. I can give you more information about my one-on-one sessions as well.
Awesome. I'll definitely share that with everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.